This video will cover the Cabbage Patch Kids as it relates to witchcraft. I know others have covered the Cabbage Patch theme, but I want to add to the investigation because I think it fits with the theme of Knights of the Crown, the occult, and witchcraft. And I would like to just add here genetic manipulation, otherwise known as alchemy, which is very important to cover now because of the time that we are in history prophetically. Y'all may have seen the theories about the babies in incubators or hatcheries that were prominent at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, with the nod towards child trafficking and possibly related to the orphan trains and repopulation. A friend nudged me to look into that, and so I did. The Mind Unveiled channel has a playlist about it, and Now You See TV also did a video about it last week. Some say that it could be related to baby farming, repopulation, or genetic manipulation. And I'll just say that it's probably related to genetic manipulation, at least. At that Chicago World's Fair, they advertised the incubators as a method to make babies healthier, but also grow much larger than average quickly. And I'm not going to dismiss any of the other theories that have been postulated because we know that the elites are into population control using immigration and other methods. But what I'm trying to show is that they're also into the occult and witchcraft, and they use it. And this rabbit hole has that written all over it. But it also has genetic manipulation written all over it, which is a very important topic to cover for the times that we're in. And I'll go over all that in this video. So some of the key points are going to be, again, that common theme of genetic manipulation, which I think runs through the entire situation. Cabbage, which is commonly used in witchcraft. Cabbage Patch dolls, the weird surrealist postcard advertisements from back then, the association with fairies, which is a Nephilim feature and commonly associated with witchcraft and magic, and also the silent movie that was released specifically, they say, to advertise the incubator babies for the World's Fair. So first, the use of cabbage in witchcraft says as you enter a meditative state or perform a ritual, incorporating cabbage into the practice can bring a sense of grounding to your soul. Ways you can incorporate cabbage into your magical practice is to place leaves of cabbage in your wallet to attract wealth. Write romantic desires on a piece of cabbage leaf and try to bury it under the light of the full moon to bring love into your life. So let's look at this silent movie. The movie that was produced at the time to advertise the babies in incubators at the fair was titled The Cabbage Patch Fairy. And here is just a screenshot from it. It's very strange. This lady is pulling babies out of cabbages in a garden in this silent movie. There were other movies in that series, which this is an academic paper that talks about it. And if you look down here, you'll see this fairy movie titled Mrs. Wiggs and the Cabbage Patch. And for years it says the stage role was played by a lesbian actress. So in this series here, it also talks about the fact that that movie, along with other movies in the series, were also associated with feminism and sapphic sexuality, otherwise known as lesbianism. And we know that the fairy is a common theme in the occult. So the first thing I wanted to do was research the filmmaker, Alice Guy Blanche, who made that Cabbage Patch Fairy movie. And she was knighted. She was the Legion of Honor, which is the highest order of merit in France, which tells me she's probably a witch. See the other videos in my playlist titled Knights of the Crown. She also made a movie titled The Vampire. It's right here. And by the way, Nicholas de Vere, bloodliner, wrote in Transylvania to Tunbridge Wells that witches, vampires, fairies are essentially the same entity because they're Nephilim. He didn't say that, but that's what I'm saying. And that's what Gary Wayne says also. Now the Cabbage Patch dolls. They were crazed in the 80s, where babies were born in a cabbage patch and adopted out of a mock hospital in Georgia. The narrative book behind them featured a boy named Xavier, who was modeled after the creator Xavier Roberts, and the boy followed a bunny bee fairy, and this is it, who led him to a place where babies were being produced in a cabbage patch. And that story also involved chimeras and witches. And at that mock hospital, many famous people or actors visited that Babyland General Hospital in a small town in Georgia, and their photos are displayed all over the wall there. Some people that had the dolls said that they were evil. Maybe. So, to the postcards. Here's some of them. But most of them during that time were of babies. And they're very weird, surrealist style postcard art. I think they were mostly French, with babies in cabbage patches. And other garden themes that were circulating in the 1900s proposed to be advertising the adoption of farmed babies, depicting babies being grown oftentimes in cabbages, and there are lots of them, and even may have some relation to the mandrake, which is used in witchcraft. The Mind Unveiled channel covered all those postcards in detail, and someone had made a book about those postcards titled Babylon Surreal Babies. You see these babies in here in a cauldron. Very strange. It's said that this book here influenced Salvador Dali, and he was also a knight and a Satanist. The Proto-Evangelium channel covers him in a video of his, and I've also made a video about him, Salvador Dali. And I'll just mention that while I was researching this, I found that there was another book titled Babylon Babies, published in 1999, about a woman with schizophrenia who was a surrogate mother of twins, representing the next stage of human evolution. And she was pregnant with some kind of Babylonian embryos, and that leans into the genetic manipulation theory. And all these surrealist postcards were sent around seemingly advertising babies for adoption. Let's look at Ann Geddes, because Ann Geddes also made photos of naked babies in cabbages and other garden themes, very similar to the postcards with the babies farmed in cabbages from the prior era. And Ann Geddes is also a Knight of the Crown, New Zealand Order of Merit. Of course she was, which is odd because, it's just for being a photographer. But they promoted her heavily because they published a bunch of books with her photographs in it in all these different languages. I think it said 83 different languages or something like that. And you might think that these photos are innocent, but I don't. I always felt they were very creepy. But let's look at some of these books. Here's one, and it's titled Be Gentle with the Young. I'm wondering, am I reading too much into this in the connections? I don't think so, because here's another one of her series of photos, and it's fairies. Babies and fairies. Even has a little psychedelic mushroom here. Driftwood fairy. See that? So it's connected, definitely. Let's look at how more it's connected. Here she is. She's closely affiliated with Celine Dion, and they published one of their Naked Garden baby books together. And Celine Dion is also a knight. Order of Canada, Quebec. And Celine Dion is the one that had the dark baby clothing line, Selenunu, and she had a commercial in the hospital where she was blowing magic dust onto the babies, and they changed to black gender-neutral clothing that says New Order. And in the commercial, she said that, quote, "Our children are not really our children, but links in a never-ending chain in the universe, and we must thrust them into the future." I think she's talking about genetic manipulation or alchemy. And who else is into genetic manipulation and transhumanism? Grimes, Elon Musk's baby mama, who they say their last child, I think her name was Exodark Sidrel, was born via surrogate. And her father was in biotech. And lastly, Gloria Vanderbilt, who's definitely a witch and a bloodliner, Here she is in a photo with her children, and you see these cabbages here, front and center. And then you also see this weird queen in the back with butterflies all around, MK Ultra. And if I had to guess, that's Queen Victoria, the fairy queen. And you might say, big deal about the cabbages, they're just ceramic cabbages, but here's another famous photograph with her and her children. And what is this thing over her bed? It's definitely satanic, representing a pagan goddess with child sacrifice. You can't see it very well, or human sacrifice. But here it is, on flames. Somebody broke it down. Here's this witchy vampire thing. Totally occult symbolism. It's Tanit. And probably Phoenician. Associated to Ashtarte or Ishtar. Child sacrifice. So, the takeaway is that, you know, the ones who shape our society and culture, they're usually knighted by the bloodliners and placed in an order of this or that. It's all witchcraft, and sometimes it's subtle. It's been going on for a long time. It's just that the methods change somewhat based on the era, going from literature to theater with Shakespeare, the opera, World's Fairs, silent movies, recorded music, ritual circus, postcards, commercials, Super Bowls, Olympics, video games, and more. Hollywood. The point that I'm trying to drive home is that it's controlled by the bloodliners. It's promoted and ordered from the top down. And it's a bottomless pit until Jesus returns. But the other point that I want to make is that even because it's been going on a long time, we have to take more heed to it now, because we're at the point in the beast system where they are ready to genetically manipulate us without our consent. Thanks for listening.